how to spell. It is time to get into the dark side, or the villain tier list. Now I'm excited for this one because I actually prefer the villain heroes than I do the as I was saying, sorry, I actually prefer the villain side than I do the hero side. So without further ado, we're gonna get into the tier list. Of course, though, we gotta disable all of the star cards. So we'll start with Boba Fett and go all the way down. Boba Fett. Now, I gotta be honest with you guys. I am very biased towards Boba Fett for the very reason I love Boba Fett. I love Jango Fett and I love Boba Fett. So I want to make this as unbiased as I can. Boba Fett is a long-range sort of trooper. Oh shit! Hang on, that was embarrassing. That's what I got. But anyways, is a clone bounty hunter, and has a jetpack, has Z6 jetpack attached to him, which is pretty nice. He boasts a 600 health, making him on the low end of the health spectrum. And I don't believe any hero has this low of health, meaning that Boba Fett has a extremely low health pool. In fact, he has less health than any of the hero classes, which does make him a bit of a fragile villain, but he's still really good at what he. Let me turn off the volume because you don't really need it. This makes him a bit of a softer character. He does boast 4 abilities though. The first one is the Z6 jetpack. Instead of being able to aim down your sights, if you double tap X or hit the left bumper, or the left trigger rather, not the bumper, you fly. And flying does grant its benefits, moving around the map real fast and effectively. Just keep in mind that it does have a fuel limit, and the fuel does come back rather slowly. But again, you can either stand still to move just completely forward, or you can move around at extremely fast speeds. While the fuel does take a little time to recharge, it is a very viable utility, but should only be used when you have to escape a dangerous situation that you know you're not going to win from, or to get up to high up areas in order to snipe enemies with the E5. I think this is the E5. E11? No, this isn't. I don't know. I think this is the E5. I could be wrong. I don't know what this blaster is called. No, the EE3. This is the EE3 blaster. Anyways, his left bumper ability is a distortion concussion rocket. Basically what it does is it distorts enemy view. In bot modes, it also disables their blaster, which is pretty nice. You can get a star card to disable real players' blasters too, but I mean, the main goal of this is just to kind of confuse the enemy and to make it harder for them to see and shoot at you. The right bumper ability is Rocket Barrage, and exactly what it says, you release a barrage of rockets that are extremely deadly and extremely effective. Last is For the Hunt. It creates a long-range scanner ability that allows you to see enemies through walls and has the added bonus of giving you unlimited fuel. Not only is this extremely good at finding enemies, it also can be a very effective utility to get away in case you run out of fuel. In case you've run out of you can just put on For the Hunt and you get a little extra flight time. This can be used to get away even more effectively in case you run out of fuel. Just keep in mind though, when For the Hunt is active, if you have For the Hunt active, you will not regain fuel. So if you're trying to look to regain fuel, don't use For the Hunt. Either way, he is a very effective villain, but he's only really effective at medium to long ranges. If enemies do get in too close, you can just use the Z6 jetpack to make a quick getaway to get either farther back to be more effective in those confrontations, or to get away completely. Honestly, I'd put Boba Fett, in an unbiased opinion, at a B tier. While he's not extremely effective, he can be very effective in certain situations, getting up to high up areas that enemies can't shoot at, or just being an all-around nuisance to enemy teams using concussion and rocket barrages. I think he's a B tier, and I only believe he's a B tier because of his health. He is very fragile and can't sustain much damage. Boba Fett is a B. Next is Bossk. Bossk, much like Boba Fett, is a ranged villain. And boasts 600 health, making him part of the low pool of heroes and villains health line. Bossk, unlike Boba Fett, is strictly long range, as his only effective at long ranges. Another thing that you have to use as Bossk is timing, as the way you make your blaster more effective is by charging up your shots. You charge up your shots by aiming down your sights and letting the circle around your crosshair fill up. Once it's filled up completely, you can unleash a barrage that will one hit light class such as assault, officer, and sniper, and will 2-hit and one heavy and then one small hit will take out a heavy. Again, though, it can also just be used effectively without just spamming, dealing moderate damage, but not anything too good. Bossk is exceptional at setting up traps, and his first ability is Dioxis Gas. Dioxis Gas can be used to kind of flush out a room of enemies. While it does only light damage, it does distort enemies and can be a real pain in the ass to deal with. It can clear out certain objective ways, as most heroes don't want to die via Dioxis Gas or just die in general, so they're most likely going to clear out of an area. Although it does do light damage, it is strictly just for support or clearing out any enemies that you've already weakened with your blaster. The next ability is Proximity Mines. Throwing a trio of proximity mines in the area, much like Han Solo's, is strictly situational, as enemies have to actually walk over it. But unlike Han Solo's, the proximity mines are actually pretty freaking useful, as they will go off immediately after an enemy has walked over them, and they deal massive damage because of the 3 explosives it gives off. The last ability is Predator Instincts. This gives you infrared and a contact grenade launcher. This, I cannot tell you how extremely effective this is. While this is a short range, it can be used to get you out of certain situations if enemies are getting way too close for comfort for your blaster to effectively pick off because you can't charge it up in time and maintain a high health. Using your Predator Instincts, you're able to just quickly dispatch enemies that are getting too close to you in order to maintain a good sniping position. It can also be used to see enemies throughout the map, which can also give you and the rest of your team pointers as to where enemies are located. Despite the fact that Bossk may be more versatile than Boba Fett, I don't think he's better, and I believe he's only a C tier, and I only give him C tier because of the fact that his low health pool and the fact that he's strictly long range except for one ability really makes it, and then all of his abilities are close range abilities, really makes him hard to use unless you're playing one playstyle or the other. While you can play strictly close range and do light damage with your blaster, it is extremely difficult to do so. For this reason and this reason alone, I put him at C, as he's very effective long range or very effective short range. But he cannot be effective playing both because his abilities and the weapon he uses contradict each other. I forgot to take off a start card second. The Sith Lord himself, Darth Vader. Darth Vader is a lightsaber and the first lightsaber wielder that we will go over for the dark side. let's just say Darth Vader is incredibly powerful. I mean, this man is insane. He two hits any sort of class with his lightsaber and has insanely good abilities to boot. His stamina may not be as high as the other villains or heroes. He does boast a nice 800 health, making him higher up on the health pool. And this is only made even more ridiculous by the power of his abilities and his lightsaber attacks. His first ability is lightsaber throw. This ability just throws your lightsaber straight in front of you that could deal damage on throw and then on return, dealing enemies double the damage if they don't get out of the way in time. This is extremely effective at picking off enemies at medium ranges, but anything past that in your lightsaber might not get the job done. I also want to say that at medium long ranges you can only hit them once, while at medium close ranges you may be able to hit them twice with your lightsaber. His second ability is choke. This ability picks all enemies up into the air and puts them in a cone shape kind of area, as seen here. This can be really effective at hurting enemies together, and sometimes if you're lucky, you can actually force pull your enemies off into different areas. While it is very hard to achieve, as this is mainly used in an online setting, if you get enemies close enough to a ledge and you are able to pull off a force choke pull, you're able to just throw enemies right off the edge, and they can't do anything about it but watch, as they know that they're going to be thrown directly into the void. His last ability is Focus Rage. Focus Rage reduces the amount of stamina it takes to attack the block, and you gain Fortify. Fortify, again, is just temporary health. This is insane. This allows Vader to make massive plays, especially when Vader has full health, but it can also be used as a utility to make sure that Vader can survive any encounters that he may not be able to win, such as Anakin Skywalker's Retribution, because it's pretty much the only thing that can save any villain is just Focus Rage. Focus Rage on full health Vader will give him 1,000 health, giving him the most health out of any hero or villain in the entire game. Not only this, but he is just incredibly powerful. I mean, Vader is just straight up broken sometimes. Again though, it is very easy to defeat but his only downside is that if you are too confident in your abilities and don't have the skills to back it up, you can be swiftly and easily taken out, and more likely than not, you're probably just going to get yourself killed if you go in too confidently. But his abilities give you the upper hand that definitely can help you win any encounter with any hero or reinforcement that you may come across on the battlefield. Any unfortunate soul that you lock on is pretty much dead as long as you can close the gap quickly and use one of your abilities, or just Focus Rage and just run straight at him. Just keep in mind, Focus Rage does give you Fortify, but it does not give you resistance, so you'll still be taking full damage. So even though you have Focus Rage active, just know that you're not invincible. Far from it, as you still take normal damage, just you have extra health for a little bit. All in all, after all that, you may think I'd put Vader in S, but I'm going to put him in A. And the only reason why that is because his attacks are slow and his stamina is laughable at best. His stamina bar is completely ruined every time you go in for an attack, and if you have to fight enemies one after the other in quick succession, you're going to notice that you're going to be using Focus Rage or one of your abilities very quickly. While his abilities are extremely useful, they are useful pretty much mostly because of the fact that Vader's stamina bar can't withstand his aggressive. They're really required to play effectively as Darth Vader. Again, though, I do want to say that Vader is an incredible villain, and I think he is the best villain in my opinion. It's just his stamina bar really does hold him back, and I just want to make sure that I keep this as unbiased as possible. So Vader is going in A tier. Oh, whoops, second. Next is the Emperor. The Emperor, I remember when I first started playing, was straight up broken, and I believe I made a video on when he was temporarily removed from the game because of how broken he was. Although since he was nerfed, I can't really find a reason to really give him any recognition beyond the fact that he has lightning, and lightning is pretty cool. While the Emperor of course does have his fair share of goodies and gadgets up his sleeve in the form of pretty effective abilities, unfortunately he is held back once again by that goddamn stamina bar. But anyways, let's get into him. Now, I know I've seen a bunch of people playing as Emperor going on tears where they just spawn in once as him and they just survive the entire match on Galactic Assault. But I'm not going to be discrediting it. I'm not going to be crediting that at all. That's not part of this, as that's just player gameplay. And as I said in the last video, every character can be S tier. Every character can be F tier. It just depends on your playstyle and how good you are at utilizing the character's abilities. This is my tier list. And with that, I'm not going to be taking into consideration other players and the fact that this character is still fucking broken. Except for me, because I can't play post-patch Emperor for whatever reason. The Emperor boasts a nice 700 health, making him a medium health villain. Now for the Emperor, I'd expect him to have one of the most healths, but whatever. His abilities are as followed. Chain Lightning allows you to chain a bunch of enemies, allows your lightning to deal heavy damage or medium damage, medium to heavy damage with a bunch of enemies. Basically a free lightning, so you don't have to just stand there and press the right trigger and left trigger and waste all your stamina. You can just do this and it's pretty simple. Electrocute stuns all enemies in a cone shape, basically allowing you to get up close and personal to an enemy that may have shot you one too many times and now you're pissed. Last is Dark Aura. This confuses enemies and slows them down and prevents, and I believe, it damages those around him, deals light damage to enemies, to those around him, and kind of slows them down a little bit so they can't run. Other than that, that's pretty much all of his abilities. Now, again, I want to say that I know there are a bunch of players that still use Emperor Palpatine as though he was fucking broken, and I understand, but I also want to say this is just my tier list. And I suck at Emperor. I just want to say again, just preface this before we continue, that this is my personal opinion and this is my personal tier list. I'm not taking other players and their experiences into consideration when I'm talking about this character. I'm just talking about their stats and how I view them. With that being said, I think the Emperor is a D tier character. While he's not exactly F, it's the goddamn stamina bar and his lack of damage that really affects him. As you see, I was struggling to kill even an assault class with just my simple attack. Now I know you can double the damage with R2 with the right trigger and left trigger, and that's exactly what I was doing. But unfortunately, that doubles your stamina consumption, and as you can tell, it's not that effective. Again, though, I know that other players can use them effectively, but unfortunately, I'm putting Emperor Palpatine at D tier, making him the lowest character so far. Next is Kylo Ren. Kylo Ren is a fast character, used for quick attacks in quick succession and getting the hell out of there. His stamina bar is pretty effective and does not completely dissipate every time you want to attack a single enemy, like Lord Vader or the Emperor. He boasts 750 health, making him a moderate health villain. Basically, pretty average. His abilities are as followed. Pull. The simple pull pulls enemy towards you and allowing you to close the gap between enemies, allowing you to hurt them even more effectively. In this gameplay, for whatever reason, it just decided to kill them. Usually it won't kill the bots, but I'm not sure why it is, so we're just going to move on. Just know that it will not kill a full health assault officer or specialist. Just keep that in mind. But I don't know why it's killing them, so we're just going to move on. Next is Freeze. This ability allows you to freeze enemies within the cone-shaped range. This allows you to, again, close the gap. As you're going to tell, most of Kylo Ren's abilities are to be fast, swift, and most importantly, close the gap. And as you can clearly see, all of his abilities are going to be such that. His last ability is Frenzy. This will allow you to propel forward towards enemies. The more enemies nearby, the more effective your frenzy is. Again, you can notice a common theme where I'm literally just fleeing myself at the enemy. Again, to close the gap. This makes Kylo Ren effective at taking out groups of enemies or causing mass panic. Again, his stamina bar is also pretty good and boasts pretty considerable amount of hits and blocks before you have to flee with your tail between your legs because you can't do anything and you've used all your abilities. Nah, I'm kidding. Kylo Ren is very effective, but do I think he's S tier rating? I actually think he is. Because you're able to close the gap between enemies, this does make it very difficult for them to fight you off. As the most effective way to fight a lightsaber wielder is long-range attacks, and you can't do that with Kylo Ren, because he's fast, and also because of the fact that most of his abilities, either one ability stops you, allowing him to get close to you. Frenzy will make him rush forward towards you, and pull will make you come to him. Basically, long range, medium, if you're anywhere medium range, which would be ill-advised but still effective, well, you can't do anymore, as he'll just yank you forward and now you're very close to him and he'll just slash you with his lightsaber. This makes Kylo Ren the perfect villain, making him a worthy candidate of the S rank and making him the first S rank villain. Next is Darth Maul. I'm not gonna hide my feelings towards Darth Maul. I think in the movies he's great. I think in the shows he's great. Do I think he's great in the video game? Unfortunately, not so much. He's actually almost just like Kylo Ren in terms of getting the enemies close to you or allowing you to close the gap. But unfortunately, he suffers from the lack of stamina bar disorder, where your stamina bar just depletes. And this is not because you take a lot of stamina, but because you attack so goddamn fast that you deplete your own stamina bar, and then when you realize what you've done, it's too late. Either way, let's continue. His first ability is Furious Throw. Oh, I also should mention that he has 700 health. I think it's 700. Hang on. I gotta see now. I think it's 700. Nah, I don't remember. Yes, he boasts a nice 700 health, making him a medium health here villain. His first ability is Furious Throw. This Furious Throw acts just like Darth Vader's throw, except I think it goes a little bit farther. Other than that, it's exactly the same. His next ability, and the only ability that doesn't allow him to bridge the gap, but in fact can sometimes work against his favor, is Chokehold. Chokehold will pick all the enemies up within the radius and throw them backwards. Again, this won't kill officers, assault, or specialist, but I'm not sure why it's doing it now, but whatever. This ability can work well within your favor to push away heroes. This can also work well within your favor to push heroes or enemies off ledges. But it can work against you if the enemy has a gun and survives and unloads his blaster into you. Again, I don't want to say that Darth Maul is bad for this ability. I'm just saying that it is, again, situational. If it is a lightsaber wielder, or if you really just need the opportunity to get away, well, there's another ability for that. Last is Spin Attack. Just like Kylo Ren's, it will fling you forward. This one will actually just fling you forward, dealing moderate damage to enemies that are unfortunate enough to get in your way. This can be used as a utility to get away quickly from fights that you know you can't win, or can be used to quickly deal damage to enemies and confuse them to get behind them, as many enemies won't be able to react in time to combos like that, or combos like this. They probably won't react in time, making it a good utility and a good offensive tool. Again, Darth Maul does rely more on getting in close to his enemies, as while his stamina bar may not be the best, his damage output, because of how fast he attacks, is definitely a lot better than most of the villains, making him a perfect B tier character. Closing out with the last 5 here, we have Iden Versio. Iden Versio is boasting a TL50 Imperial repeater with a concussion blast module attached. Also boasting 650 health, being on the lower medium health scale, being only 50 health above Boba Fett and Bosk. She is not a bad character whatsoever, and I'm also going to put her, just be completely transparent, at an S rank, but let me explain. The TL50 is extremely good at eliminating opponents, as the TL50 is the same as the heavy TL50. It is extremely useful at shredding enemies' health bars. It also is extremely useful because of the heat consumption, which is next to nothing, especially for a weapon that fires so quickly and deals so much damage. It also has the concussion blast installed, confusing the enemies by distorting their field of view, but also allowing you to deal explosive damage into enemy crowds. It can also be used as an effective way to finish off enemies that are running away that you. Her first ability is Stun Droid. This will stun enemy opponents, giving you the perfect opportunity to use a concussion blast. I should probably add that her concussion blast replaces the aim down sights button, so be accurate with your shots, although I guess you don't really need to. The next ability is Pulse Cannon. Just like Bosk's weapon, you point the gun, but this time you hold down the fire button, and when you're ready to fire, let go. It will deal extreme damage if fully charged, and if you charge it too much, the weapon will automatically fire. So be quick about it, but also be patient. The last ability is Droid Shield. This allows her to get away from any fight and actually has some pretty significant damage reduction, damage absorption, making it a pretty effective shield. Iden Versio is the perfect character for if you want to go ranged. If you want to play as a ranged villain at all, Iden Versio is probably the first one you want to go to. The second one is the one we're about to talk about. Iden Versio, S rank. As you can clearly notice so far before we continue, that none of these characters have gone anywhere, has gotten an F. And by now, we'd have one of them, which would of course be Han Solo. Next is Captain Phasma. Captain Phasma is a pretty good assault class too, boasting the same gun stats really in terms of fast fire rate and heat reduction and heat it creates, which is next to nothing again. The F-11D is extremely powerful and can deal with any enemies and heroes with relative ease. Her abilities are extremely good to boot, and the aim down sight is night vision, meaning that enemies will glow, making it extremely easy to spot enemies in dark areas or just kind of spot out enemies that you want to shoot at, much like Lando Calrissian's. The first ability is Staff Strike. If enemies get too close and you just don't feel like using your blaster, use a Staff Strike that deals a shit ton of damage for, a staff. Actually, it's more than a lightsaber, actually. It doesn't one hit like it does here, but I mean, it does significant damage. It's very valuable. Next is a first order droid, a sentry droid, and I'm not even going to talk about this thing. You get too close, it shocks you. It will also shoot you if you're too far away. Basically, this thing is fucking nuts in Heroes vs. Villains. You set this thing up in a corner or in a small room like this, and and you hide. Yeah, you're not dying, unless the enemies are very coordinated, which you can't have that because there's no freaking game chat, which is stupid. They should have added that. But I guess it is a Star Wars game, so they don't want people swearing and saying the N-word to a bunch of impressionable kids. Maybe it was the right idea. Last is Survivor. All this does is give you a massive fortify or temporary health increase, making her tank a lot more damage. Just be advised, just like Lord Vader though, You don't get any resistance to it, so you'll still be taking the regular amount of damage. So I wouldn't go out there running and gunning straight into enemy fire, because you're probably going to die just as easily. All in all, Captain Phasma is, again, incredibly useful, but I feel like Iden Versio is more useful than that, and I feel like Boba Fett in most instances can be switched out for a Phasma. I think the only really ability to shout home about is the First Order Sentry Droid, and that's just because it's extremely cheap in Heroes vs. Villains. But if you really want to talk about the full scale of the game, I don't think Captain Phasma is nearly as valuable as Iden Versio, and arguably in most situations isn't as valuable as Boba Fett. I feel like maybe Bosk is the only one that you guaranteed should not have on your team if you don't have a Captain Phasma. But really and truthfully, though, all the other range characters just have more utility and are more versatile than Captain Phasma. But again, Captain Phasma is great, and I do put her at a C tier rating. Again, I know I said before that she's the second pick, and she is the second pick for most, but unfortunately, her only really special ability that really shouts home as like, this is Captain Phasma, is the First Order Sentry Droid. Other than that, it's a fortify and a melee attack. So she's not exactly really special when it comes to her abilities. She's useful, but I mean, there's nothing really that shouts home Captain Phasma. Anyways, C tier rating for Captain Phasma. But you can also just chalk that one up to just me being nitpicky, if you so choose. General Grievous. General Grievous, also known as the one that runs out of stamina, like I run out of chocolate on Easter. General Grievous is extremely powerful, dealing a lot of damage, very significant amount. But unfortunately, his stamina just can't hold up to the other heroes and villains. But other than that, he does do a lot of damage and can be a huge threat on the battlefield if he's used correctly. He is my main in Star Wars Battlefront. He is my main in this game, and this is who I will always use when playing Heroes vs. Villains and I'm on the villain team. I don't have a main for the Heroes team. I usually just play Anakin or Obi-Wan, but I suck at those guys. In fact, I just suck at anyone that's hero-based. But anyways, his abilities are pretty useful and are basically the crutch that will allow you to not die when you run out of stamina. So let's go over them real quick. Thrust Surge will thrust you at an enemy, and you will poke them with all 4 lightsabers, dealing massive damage and knocking them on their feet. Next is Claw Rush. This will also knock enemies on their feet, and basically is a utility to allow you to get away, or to disorient enemies by knocking them on their feet, allowing your team to pick them off pretty easily. Just be very coordinated though, as while you do get a resistance, it doesn't last very long, so just know when to use it. His last ability is Unrelenting Advance. This is seen in Revenge of the Sith, and basically as long as you're facing enemies, you will deflect all their blasters and move forward. I think you move at the same speed. If enemies dare to get too close, you can actually damage them. I want to say that General Grievous is anything above a B, but unfortunately I can't really give General Grievous anything above a B. The only reason why I do that is because of his stamina. While he does boast 800 health, being a high-end hero just like Darth Vader, he does suffer from the same drawbacks, such as massive damage, but at the cost of his stamina bar. I mean, I run out of cum slower than I run out of this thing, and I jerk off every day. That's a joke, but the analogy works. Basically, what I'm trying to say is, although he does a lot of damage and can be extremely useful, his stamina bar sets him back. But unlike Darth Vader, his abilities don't really help him and support him in any way, other than Claw Rush. Other than that, he doesn't really have many abilities that really complement his the way he's supposed to be played. I mean, he's not a block hero. I mean, you're not gonna see General Grievous out there blocking blaster hits for his team, because Lord knows he doesn't have the stamina bar for that. And while he can attack for very long before running out of stamina. All in all, I feel like General Grievous has been given the shit end of the stick when it comes to this game, but I still main him because I just love General Grievous, and I am good at him. But regardless, I am going to be looking this more at an unbiased opinion, because again, Just like Boba Fett, I feel like any characters that I really like should be looked at unbiased. And unfortunately, looking at him unbiased, I can't give him anything above a B. So I'm going to have to give him a C tier rating. He's okay in situational approaches, such as heroes versus villains. But outside of heroes versus villains, you might as well go with Darth Maul or another character that can keep up with stamina and can deal the damage, such as Darth Vader, for instance. You'd have more fun playing Darth Vader anyways. Anyways, General Grievous, C tier rating. Rounding out the last two, we have Count Dooku. I used to actually man Count Dooku when I used to play this game heavily back in the day. Although I don't play this game as much, and I forget how to play Count Dooku, and I pretty much forget exactly how to play as Count Dooku. He's not a pure offensive. I can't remember what he's used for, but he's used for duels. He's used for taking out other heroes, but whatever. Anyways, he boasts a nice 750 health, making him a medium-high ranged health character. His stamina bar is negligible at best. I mean, he's okay. He does have an ability that does make the stamina consumption a little more understandable. But anyways, let's get into the first ability. The first ability being Lightning Stun. This will electrocute enemies and push them backwards off their feet, making it extremely easy to close the gap and kill them. As you can really tell with most of these villains, basically most of the abilities is to either close the gap or to make the gap non-existent, such as lightsaber throws. That's just something you're going to see, that's just a theme with all the villains, if you haven't noticed. While the heroes are really to keep the enemy away with force push and all those. Yeah, no, not the villains. The villains is come here. But anyways. His next ability is Expose Weakness. This will slow down enemies, give them a weakness, which increases the amount of damage they take, and can stop heroes from using their abilities, and can stop reinforcements from using their abilities. Basically, this is basically the ability you want to use when you're dueling a hero that is getting the upper edge. Just use this. Now they can't block. Now they can't use abilities, and they're slow as hell. Happy hunting. His last ability is the exact opposite. It is Duelist. While it doesn't give you increased resistance, it makes your attacks as fast as lightning. It also makes you do more damage, and your attacks are cooler. Okay, it's pretty cool. I like to say that Count Dooku is a fast, more duelist type character, where if you're fighting a one-on-one fight, fighting reinforcements is of course easy, as with all villains and heroes, but really he excels at dueling other heroes. If you're playing heroes versus villains, you should probably have a Count Dooku on your team. And if you're playing Galactic Assault, and there's just a hero mopping the floor with your team, and you really need to take care of him, I would suggest using Count Dooku, using Exposed Weakness and the Duelist combo, in order to give you buffs and him debuffs, and just going in and going ham, as he's probably not going to be able to run away from the fight, seeing as he can't run anymore and he's slow as hell. Again, though, Count Dooku is situational. I like to give him a B tier rating, only because of the fact that he's good at dueling enemy heroes. So a B tier rating seems to be right up his alley. And ending the list with BB9E. I knew you all were waiting for this one, if you guys were. BB9E, or the BB8 better version. BB9E is a support villain. That's how you can chalk it up. But unlike BB8, he actually plays his role pretty well. As we know, BB ability that allows him to really play support. BB9E has two abilities, and the last ability that isn't a support ability isn't really an offensive ability either. It's just kind of a way to keep enemies away from him as a sort of last-ditch effort to defend, or a way to get enemies off their feet. His first ability is Smokescreen. This will reveal enemy players to you and the rest of their team, while also hiding your movements by clouding you in smoke, and also preventing enemies from using their radar. While again, this does expose you a little bit more than it does conceal your movements, it does prevent enemies from using their radar if they get caught within the smoke. The next ability is Charge Up. This increases your damage and the damage of your fellow teammates. Basically, you just allow your friends to deal more damage. The last ability is Shock Spin. This ability is used most effectively when enemies are getting way too close to you and you need to get them off your ass. It will stun enemies, disable their weapons, and deal light damage to them. Basically, it's just a way of saying fuck off. While again, I don't see any purpose with support heroes and villains, as you're not really going to be seeing BB-8 on the battlefield giving players additional damage or revealing him with Smokescreen. The fact that he is really small and hard to hit and has an ability specifically created to just piss people off is also really funny, and it's a nice gimmick. I actually have to give BB9E a C tier rating because while he isn't offensive and that's not his purpose, he does actually play the role of support relatively well, giving players a damage increase and also revealing enemies that are close by to BB9E. And he does play this role of support very well. I would have liked to see a third support ability, such as maybe Bacta. And all that. But, I mean, it's fine. I also forgot to mention, I looked at it because I had to look up Charge Up because I knew it did more. It also reduces the heating cost of firing their blaster and makes it so their ability times are reduced. Again, the pinnacle. I was going to rate him C, but now I have to rate him B because Charge Up is even better than I thought it was. I'm rating BB9E a nice B tier rating. Again, while he's not an offensive hero, a villain, and he's not supposed to be. He's supposed to play more support, and if their team either is really desperate or if enemies are just getting too close to BB9E, he can just use Shock Spin and get enemies off his ass. Anyways, BB9E is actually surprisingly a B tier rating, which is above some of the other villains and above some of the other heroes. Alright, the final verdict I have is Boba Fett at a B tier rating. Boss. Alright, Boba Fett at a B tier rating. Bosk at C tier. Darth Vader at A tier. Emperor Palpatine scoring the lowest with a D tier. Kylo Ren being the first S tier. Darth Maul bringing it up with a B tier. Versio being the second S tier. Hang on. Okay, I got it. Captain Phasma coming in with C tier. General Grievous coming in with C tier. Count Dooku bringing in the B tier lollipops. And BB9E rounding it out with a B9E rating. But anyways, that's about it. I want to thank you so much for watching, and that is my official rating on the characters. Now, I know some of you might like the Assault Heavy Officer and Specialist, so let's go over this. ASSF. Okay, that's it. But anyways, I want to thank you all so much for watching. As always, I'll talk to you later. Stay awesome, stay fresh to you guys, and that is my official tier list. See y'all later.